Voters do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans, and frankly, they should seek immediate help.
So White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt announced that the Associated Press has been banned from the Oval Office for not honoring the recent renaming of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. So the mistake really is there's too much BS floating out there, and now it's out of our hands. There's no way to control it, so now they're saying they're going to control it. I want to see what they're going to do.
Ongoing verbal sparring between Whoopi Goldberg and Karoline Leavitt is showing no signs of abating. What started as a few acerbic remarks has now escalated into a full-fledged verbal altercation in which neither side is prepared to back down. What is the latest cause of their breakdown? And how did Leavitt leave Whoopi stunned once more? Don't worry, I have all the receipts. Prepare the fire extinguisher because it's going to get hot.
My team will review the applications and give credentials to new media applicants who meet our criteria and pass the United States Secret Service requirements to enter the White House complex.
All right.
What's she saying?
She basically said that they were going to get
God, how boring.
unqualified people.
The people podcast needs to apply for White House credentials.
I got a question.
So in other words, instead of Bob Woodward, they want Kim Kardashian.
Here's the thing. The View's unadulterated hatred for Karoline Leavitt is so strong that you can almost feel the heat radiating off your screen like secondhand shame amplified. According to Leavitt, the Trump administration opened in the warped wonderland of Joy Bahar's mind, opening the White House doors to new media, including independent podcasters who fit certain requirements, seems straightforward enough. But for some reason, this turns into Kim Kardashian walking into the press room. How and why? Bahar claims that adopting new media is similar to removing Bob Woodward to create room for Kim K. Of course, the View ladies don't care as long as they're making cheap jabs at Karoline Leavitt. They're content with their petty little bubble. Oh, and did you see bear calling lists? That's more of an insult to Kim Kardashian than to anyone else. Karoline merely had a few choice words for them, but even as she did a tap dance while giving policy briefings, these banshees wouldn't be pleased with the first news conference being dull. Listen to it.
Unequivocally clear about that. And watching this clip, I couldn't help but think how ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists. But they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years.
With surgical precision and unwavering confidence, Karoline Leavitt delivered a verbal smackdown that left the audience in complete shock. She exposed Whoopi Goldberg and her co-hosts for what they really are, conspiracy theorists masquerading as political analysts who spin wild tales rather than deal with facts. Her words cut through their facade and shone a glaring light on their hypocrisy. One clean, deadly strike was all that was required for weeks, and the best thing was that she didn't even break a sweat. It was a defeat they never anticipated. And it sent a strong message that Leavitt isn't just enduring their attacks, she's making them wish they hadn't chosen this fight in the first place. Social media was ablaze with activity as The View and Bahar went completely radio silent, with no rants, tantrums, or petty jabs. Making comments like "cancel The View," "they're a nasty bunch of people" transforms The View into a full-fledged comedy. The fact that The Viewpoint discusses unqualified individuals is amusing. Everyone who hears it should have their minds examined. You can be sure that those remarks made her feel so offended that she was unable to control her fury, which was virtually gushing out of her eyes. Every word she spoke was laced with vengeance, and she unleashed her fury on Karoline Leavitt in a way that only someone could. It wasn't just a rebuttal, it was a full-on meltdown. Whoopi, she wasn't just angry, she was shaken. When The View gets rattled, you know Karoline Leavitt struck a nerve, and then, well, came the comeback. She can muster her response, which is far from measured, with wild hand gestures, exaggerated movements, and that signature exasperated tone that comes out when she knows she's losing ground.
And then, well, came Leavitt's comeback.
So the mistake really is There's too much BS floating out there, and now it's out of our hands. There's no way to control it. So now they're saying they're going to control it. I want to see what they're going to do. I want to see who they're going to invite into this. Because, quite honestly, I like when we're held to standards. I don't always like the way they do it, but we have to have ourselves together. We can't just say stuff in spite of what they tell you. We can't just spout stuff. So I want that for everybody. And if they're going to guarantee that they're at the briefing, then I'll be happy.
When Whoopi shouted, her hands flapping around as if she were commanding an unseen orchestra, she stammered, fumbled over her words, and doubled down in desperation. I'll be thrilled if you can virtually feel Whoopi's veins from her neck. Make her point. But what exactly had Karoline Leavitt done to provoke this degree of insane rage? Oh, that's right. She had the gall to join the Trump administration. The disdain, the patronizing tone, and the outright performance of indignation are nearly beyond comprehension. Conviction, I believe that exposing the White House to independent podcasters was a great idea, but I'm not Whoopi Goldberg, so it's like witnessing a train wreck in slow motion as I watch him fall apart over something as basic as extending media access. Definition of the press: watch this. Freedom seems to begin and end with legacy media. She also had the audacity to believe that Karoline Leavitt was inexperienced in her role at the White House.
Understand what you're saying. You're saying about yourself that, hey, that's a terrible thing to be. It's not a terrible thing to be. That's why we fought. That's what we were fighting for, so that you could stand in that podium, so that Kathleen Jean-Pierre could stand in that podium. So women of all kinds of colors and ilks, wherever they came from, whatever their belief system was, they had the opportunity to bust.
In an attempt to undermine Karoline Leavitt's IQ, Whoopi couldn't resist going off on yet another tangent. To put it simply, what she was attempting to say was that Leavitt only got her job because she's a female. Yes, you heard correctly. Ironically, the Biden administration adopted this identity politics when they chose Karoline Jean-Pierre, who met all the necessary diversity requirements as a gay, Black, and immigrant. What did we do? Obtain in exchange. Whoopi must have assumed Trump did the hiring if Biden's hiring decisions were based on the fact that one of the most inept press secretaries in the past 50 years was stumbling through briefings like a high school student who forgot to study. Similar to how Leavitt lucked her way into the White House press secretary post, which is some sort of elite club for women, Whoopi's derision of Leavitt didn't stop there. She is now sneering at her current press conference.
So White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt announced that the Associated Press has been banned from the Oval Office for not honoring the recent renaming of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
Does anyone else find Karoline's news so amusing that it has Whoopi laughing like a hyena, or is it just me? In all honesty, Trump's renaming of the ocean to the Gulf of America makes sense, but naturally, Trump barred the Associated Press from the Oval Office, not from the press pool as a whole, but from the Oval Office itself, because the ever-woke media couldn't tolerate it and insisted on calling it the Gulf of Mexico. Could still go to press briefings. It was just an issue of reciprocity and disrespect, and you were denied access. So what precisely is so hilarious here? Nothing at all, but then again, this is Goldberg, the jerk we're talking about desperately, looking for anything to make fun of Karoline Leavitt, even if it means laughing at something that isn't funny at all. It's the type of exaggerated display that aptly illustrates how unimportant the situation has become.
That their real problem in this election, or one of the real problems among the many, is the misinformation and disinformation that was disseminated on social media by these influencers and by these podcasters. Why are they qualified to sit in front in the White House briefing room and tell America what is going on with the country? Traditionally, to become a White House correspondent or to be in that briefing room, you have to have a journalism degree. Yeah. You have to have qualifications. So I guess the rise of mediocrity is here.
See what I mean? This is not merely criticism. Rather, it is outright hatred mixed with jealousy. Sonny Horton dismisses Karoline's requirements for granting access to the White House to new media, claiming that they are terribly insufficient. Then she accuses independent media of spreading false information and lies, which is a cheap strike at Karoline's intelligence when mainstream outlets have a great record of deceiving the public, as evidenced by the Hunter Biden laptop narrative. For instance, before the 2020 election, big news networks rejected it as Russian misinformation, but years later, it was verified as authentic. In the meantime, independent journalists were covering the truth from the beginning. However, they are the ones who are accused of spreading false information. Even if it means hitting below the belt, The View will do everything it takes to destroy Karoline Leavitt.
Probably been put in there because according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though, it's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous
And there you have it, folks.
Folks, you have it now, Bahars. Pure jealousy and a frantic desire to destroy Leavitt's brilliance led to the well-known attack on her. It wasn't about policy or a sincere criticism, but rather about Bahar's unwillingness to acknowledge that a young woman with a smart mind and a lot of courage was circling the media establishment. Perhaps Bahar wanted to see someone more like her, a boring, uninspired bureaucrat of the sort. A person who resembles Maleficent but lacks the charisma would not oppose the narrative, push back, or even reveal The View's duplicity. Instead, she hired Karoline Leavitt, a press assistant who defends herself and completely destroys weak, unsubstantiated assaults with a single clapback, which more than anything enrages Bear and her co-hosts.
Do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans, and frankly, they should seek immediate.
Whoopi Goldberg was not merely shocked by these remarks. She was devastated for years. Like an untouchable queen on her throne, Whoopi had been the one making the decisions, spearheading the woke agenda, directing the narrative, and dominating the public opinion. But Karoline Leavitt. The takedown struck her like a lightning strike directly to her ego. You could almost hear the collective gasp when Leavitt advised Whoopi to get assistance for her Trump derangement sickness. It wasn't merely a joke. It was a public diagnosis given with a smile that intensified the pain. Whoopi's face twisted in hatred, her eyes blazing, her typical arrogance gone, no false laughter, just unadulterated, unfiltered anger. She wasn't just angry. She was seething with the kind of rage that doesn't go away, but instead waits for the right moment to blow out. But deep down, even Whoopi must have known that she had been totally outplayed this time, and the reactions that followed were much worse.
Spewing lies, uttering insane diatribes, and generally behaving in an ugly, hate-filled manner, we marvel and mock the sheer shameless stupidity of the modern left daily. On this program, we've almost become desensitized to the insanity, but even I was taken aback, sickened by this demented diet.
Strong remarks from Sky News Australia's Rita Panahi when it appeared that Goldberg and her prospective cronies had finally reached their lowest point with their insane diatribes. They somehow found a shovel and dug even more, something that Panahi didn't do. Refrain from she exposed the utter ridiculousness of Whoopi's insane outburst, pointing out that the public is caught in a never-ending cycle of indignation, with each outburst appearing more ludicrous than the one before, as though they're competing to outdo their own mysteria. She wasn't just amazed by their most recent performance. She was almost impressed by their ability to continuously lower the bar just when you believe they've used up every horrible tactic they can. They are frantic to remain relevant in a world that is quickly tuning them out. They somehow outdid themselves with something even more insane at this point. It's a live, never-ending meltdown broadcast that isn't even a chat show.
Hot mess that they air in the mornings called The View had to issue not one, not two, not three, but 4 corrections, legal corrections. 4 legal notes. We only have 3 of them on camera, but look at this.
Another legal note.
My God.
Both Trump and Pam Bondi have denied allegations of a quid pro quo.
You want to take this one, Joy, or you
Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations and has not been charged with any crime.
That's so.
Also, another legal note,
Pete Hegseth's lawyer said he paid the woman in 2023 to head off the threat of a big...
Even though Megyn Kelly was a little more giving than Rita Panahi, don't let that fool you. She still ruined the ladies of The View by calling them a hot mess and asking how they could possibly have a show, much less a devoted following, when they so easily spread lies. As if it were second nature to them, Kelly didn't hold back when criticizing The View's trademarks of apparent disinformation, hypocrisy, and feigned anger, wondering how anyone could possibly take them seriously. She compared their remarks to a staged reality show, with the exception of, drama is shamefully predictable and not at all amusing. She added that every discussion she observed has less to do with facts and more to do with score, and that the viewpoint has become an echo chamber for resentful, out-of-touch elites who accept their own uncontrolled biases for truth. Sleazy jabs at conservatives forget the facts. In closing, Kelly said that the question now is not whether they will distribute false information, but rather how quickly they will do it before someone like Karoline Leavitt, Rita Panahi, or herself calls them out on it.
By less than 50%. So what kind of mandate is this really?
Well, it is a mandate, and I'm going to explain why. And I don't mind the question, but let me be very clear. I'm no supporter of Trump. I'm a supporter of truth and the facts. And here's the facts. The man won every swing state. He increased in terms of his vote, the voter turnout in his favor from the standpoint of blacks, Latinos, and young voters. He increased his numbers in that regard for 2020. 89% of the county shifted to the right. That's a mandate.
Stephen A. Smith, a prominent left-leaning TV personality, has finally started to see through the facade of The View, and that's where things really get interesting. It's one thing for conservative journalists or right-wing media figures to call out The View for their blatant bias, but when someone from within their camp starts throwing punches, that changes everything. Smith hasn't held back, openly criticizing The View for constantly downplaying, dismissing, and outright mocking every move Donald Trump has made since winning the November election. It's as if they can't acknowledge reality unless it aligns with their pre-approved anti-Trump narrative. What makes Smith's criticism even more impactful is that he's no conservative lapdog. He's earned a reputation for speaking his mind regardless of who gets offended. So when he calls out The View for their obsessive Trump bashing, it's not just another talking point from the right. It's a direct shot from within their own ideological camp. And if even Stephen A. Smith is willing to call it out, you know this problem is too big to ignore.
What are you doing to win? I love Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland. I do too. Pennsylvania, okay? I just interviewed Cuomo. I like him a lot. I want somebody to step up and recognize that man in the Oval Office, whether you like it or not, is potent. He's coming and he wins. You got to find a way to beat him. This way is not the way to do it.
Let's talk about how people are feeling about his performance.
NT RVU 1715-1740. Let's face it, the Democrats must abandon their antiquated, collapsing political apparatus, which includes the insane echo chamber known as The View, if they intend to win any more elections. Nothing is being done to assist Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, and their co-hosts. Their incessant frenzy, arrogant condescension, and obvious disinformation may fuel their following, but they aren't winning hearts and minds. Instead, they are driving everyone outside of their small bubble farther away. In fact, their antics are becoming a liability has turned every political discussion into an exaggerated, drama-filled, fact-free meltdown rather than presenting strong, fact-based arguments. The more they spew their rubbish, the more rational people ignore them, and some even switch sides if the Democrats want a genuine chance of. Since they're now anchoring their future to a sinking ship and The View is making even more holes in it, they need to welcome new ideas, honest debate, and leaders who genuinely connect with voters if they want to win.
It has nothing to do with a meritocracy. Woke is people doing extra stuff and putting people in places that are not qualified because of the color of their skin or whatever is between their legs. Whoopi, you don't know what you're talking about. And they say it with a straight face. Matter of fact, you the reason why for the longest women couldn't be in these positions. Imagine you being the press secretary. You know how silly you are? Then y'all got a show full of women that's silly. Y'all women make people reconsider, should women even be doing this? Karoline Leavitt give us life. y'all fools make us want to turn the corner
Yes,
back.
he is entirely correct. Even though Karoline Leavitt is putting in significant effort to promote real women's empowerment, Goldberg and her View team seem determined to take us back to a time when women were not even allowed to vote. It's almost absurd how they can say, to defend Wawa's rights while attempting to dismantle a strong, capable Wawa simply because she doesn't share their political views. To be honest, when you hear them, you can't help but wonder how someone could ever make such ridiculous claims. The hypocrisy is astounding. They claim to support women's empowerment, but waste every chance to disparage, denigrate, and ridicule anyone who dares to think for themselves. It's brutally clear that they don't want women who are empowered. They desire obedient women who march in unison with their beliefs, and they will do all it takes to undermine you if you deviate from them.
For what the president's justification is for these tariffs. It's not up to you. You're not the president, Gabe. And frankly, I think it's a little bit disrespectful to the families in this country who have lost loved ones at the hands of this deadly poison. If you talk to them, and this president has, they are grateful that they finally have a president who is standing up to both Canada and Mexico, and most importantly, to China as well. The president added an additional 10% tariff on China because this deadly poison is being produced in that country. It's being distributed through our neighbors, and they're
Interview 29-2042. Meanwhile, despite Whoopi Goldberg and the left's anticipated fury, Karoline Leavitt remains utterly focused on her work. While they spend their time making unfounded accusations and having tantrums, Leavitt is addressing pressing problems and demonstrating day after day why she is the best candidate for the position. She avoids getting sucked into their small-time drama. Since she has something to do, unlike them, while Whoopi and her co-hosts pontificate on daytime TV that they are making a difference in the world, Leavitt is standing at the podium lane, providing the facts, responding to challenging inquiries, and updating the American public.